Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to the Teaching English webinar for teacher educators. My name is Shirin Sayos and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining this live event. In this session, Lavinia Hirsu and um, Lavinia Hirsu, and Dobrochna Futro will tell us why and how teacher educators should work with teachers on art-based translanguaging practices. So as usual, before we start the session, I'd like to share a number of quick housekeeping reminders with you. So please, while waiting, share with us in the Q&A where you are from. If you work in pre-service teacher education, type pre-service. If you work in-service, type in-service in the Q&A. And this session is being recorded. A recording of the webinar will be available on Teaching English within this week. And the link to the certificate will be provided in the thank you email that you will receive tomorrow. And finally, you will have a chance to ask questions during the session. Please use the Q&A to ask our presenters your questions. We will be using the chat for announcements. So let me introduce you to our presenters. And yes, I'd like to also invite them. So Dr. Lavinia Hirsu is a senior lecturer in the School of Education at the University of Glasgow. She has recently been involved in national and international projects which have supported the development of innovative language practices in the UK, Vietnam, and Kazakhstan. And she uses art-based methods and the creation of multi-dimensional learning experiences in collaboration with creative artists. And Dr. Dobrochna Futro is a lecturer in the School of Foreign Education, at the University of Glasgow, and her research focuses on translanguaging, multilingualism, art-based inquiry, language learning, teaching, and language use in multilingual and often migratory contexts. And Lien Huong is a tech facilitator of the Teaching English Multilingually through Art project, and she's currently a teacher of English. And Lien has been an English teacher for 22 years. So thank you so much for joining us. So we look forward to hearing more about your art-based projects.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Siren, and welcome or bun venit in Romanian. We are a multilingual team, and it is our pleasure and honor to join you for this webinar. While my colleagues are bringing up the slides, we are going to start with a question for you, and we hope that this session will be interactive, and you are going to share a couple of experiences that you may have been involved in through your own teaching. So the next slide brings up the question with a simple question, because we want to know more about your own experiences and backgrounds. And this question is about what materials you are using when you develop and conduct arts-based activities in the classroom with your learners. Some of you may have already used art in different ways. And we are really interested in knowing what kind of materials you have used, and because this is also part of our project story. So I will allow you for 30 seconds to share your answer to the question, and you can post that in the Q&A, and we'll keep an eye on your answers, and we'll get started from there. Okay? So we'll give you a couple of seconds to think about this question. You can see we have people with lots of different backgrounds. Okay, and there are a couple of answers coming in. So you've used art in various projects. You've used pictures, posters, newspapers, pictures. Very good. Again, share your answers in the Q&A rather than the chat. Recycled materials, fantastic. Pictures again, magazines, art gallery walk. What a beautiful idea. PowerPoints, color, drawing books, fantastic. Flashcards, objects that students bring. Really good ideas here. Dance pictures, coloring pages, recycled materials, art gallery visitation, very good. Music, wonderful. Multilingual artifacts creation. Oh, I would love to learn more about that. Fantastic. Any other materials? Blogs and podcasts, wonderful. So engaging with technology and with new media. Museum visits, that's a very good idea. And we are going to talk about museums' roles in a bit as well. As it is relevant for our project. Videos, short films, excellent. AI, I was wondering when AI is going to come into place. And yes, AI is a big area of exploration at the moment. A lot of people are trying to understand and see how we can deploy it in productive ways in the classroom. Poetry and music, pencil and paper. So we really have a wide range of materials and sources that we use in our classrooms. Songs, poets, fantastic. Keep those comments going, and we'll keep an eye on those, and we will review them. Because we want to know the range of materials that you are using in your work. Now, let's move on to our project, and we'll talk a little bit about the context of the project. The project that we are talking about today actually builds, if we go to the next slide, it builds on a pilot project that started in 2022, and both the pilot project and the consolidation project have been supported by the British Council, and we have worked really closely with the British Council team to provide support and guidance in our activities. The pilot project was conducted in 3 provinces in Vietnam, and it reached out to 329 teachers. And both the pilot as well as the consolidation project have taken a professional development approach, and we have implemented what is called TAG, which is teacher activity groups. And we are going to talk a little bit about what that meant in practice a little bit later. But let me tell you a little bit more about the consolidation project, which is the current project that we are doing now. And there's a typo there because the years are wrong, I just noticed. So the consolidation project is still taking place at the moment, and it is a collaboration between 2 universities, University of Glasgow, based in Scotland, and Nguyen University of Education, which is based in the province Nguyen in Vietnam. We are working with teachers in lower secondary schools, and we are reaching out to 64 teacher facilitators and to more than 640 teachers in teacher activity groups. So the teacher facilitators are responsible, and they are coordinating group discussions with around 20 to 22 teachers in each group. And today, as Sirin introduced at the beginning of the webinar, we have with us one of the teacher facilitators to share with you the experience of the project and what it meant to be involved in this massive initiative. Also, what's unique about this project is that we have worked in the pilot project with local artists, and in the consolidation project, we're working with 3 museums. The Museum of Cultures of Vietnam's ethnic groups in Thanh Nguyen, the Quang Ninh Museum, and the Tuyen Quang Museum. So 3 museums that are contributing actively to our development of activities. Now, let's take a look at, on the next slide, at what we mean by the TAG model. So the TAG model is a model that was supported and developed by the British Council, and it builds on the idea that we learn by providing peer support and shared expertise. And all teachers have something to contribute and to share, and we are growing stronger in our practices, in our pedagogical approaches when we come together and we identify our needs and we support each other. So local support is really important. Peer support is critical. The TAG model is also teacher-led, which means that we're putting together the competencies that teachers participating in those groups are bringing together. And the whole purpose is to support teacher agency and engagement. And as I said, we are starting with the teacher's needs, and what the experiences and the challenges they are encountering in their own classrooms. If we go to the next slide, we are going to see the two main project aims. The first one, we aim to encourage creativity, pedagogical innovation, and transformation of English classrooms. And we wanted to do this through the use of arts-based materials, practices, and pedagogies. And we'll talk a little bit later about why art. We also wanted to implement a different type of CPD, not necessarily top-down, not necessarily relying heavily on the expertise of a small cohort of people, but working together and sharing expertise also horizontally among the teachers and the teacher facilitators. Now, all of this project comes into a context where we all know that our worlds that we are inhabiting and that our students are engaging with are multilingual. So for the next slide, I'm going to pass the microphone over to Dobrochna, who are going to talk us through the larger context in which this project was born. Dobrochna, over to you.
So already in 2021, UNESCO report Reimagining Our Futures Together, a new social contract for education, highlighted that the increasing mobility of human beings across the world, whether through choice or forced displacement, has created new pedagogical realities that bring the cultural and racial diversity of the world directly into classrooms and educational settings. So teachers are working in new environments with students who have diverse educational histories, languages, and cultures. And this is also discussed in details in the newest UNESCO report, Languages Matter, Global Guidance on Multilingual Education, published in 2025. You can see in the slides here that multilingualism is a multifaceted concept, and that the ethnic minority languages are being seen as only one part of it. Multilingualism also means involving and supporting endangered languages, heritage languages. But when we talk about the multilingual world and multilingual education, we also talk about languages, supporting languages of migrants and refugees, as well as majority languages when we are supporting our learners to learn additional languages. So if we move to the next slide, you could see here a quote from that newest UNESCO report, which describes very clearly the principles that sit at the core of our project. Multilingual education is not just about language. It is about creating inclusive, equitable learning environments where linguistic and other forms of diversity are celebrated. Beyond this, it aims to cultivate inclusive societies where differences are recognized as strengths, from policy development to classroom practice. This transformation is an investment in a sustainable, cohesive, and prosperous future for all, where every learner is empowered to thrive in a multilingual world. So if we move to the next slide, please. This is the question we have for you all. We would like to ask you what challenges you have encountered in your own work supporting the professional development of teachers. Could you please respond to that question again in the Q&A? What challenges have you encountered in your work?
Limited funding, lack of training, workload and time management, lack of dedication by young teachers, disinterest from teachers to take part in professional development, moral support, budget cuts, funding comes as a strong theme, unfortunately, lack of resources, lack of motivation, will of administration to change government policy. All of your responses are really, really important. Lack of growth mindset, not providing enough materials for teachers, and this idea of appropriate resources, materials, time are so important. A lot of workload, no choices for professional development or limited choices, diverse learning, lack of encouragement, which is why we need each other, right? Time for teachers, again, bureaucratic challenges, school environment, that's also very, very important. Geographical difficulty, that's an important point. Resistance to change, no opportunities in provinces. And that's an important aspect as well, because we all live in very different contexts. Some of them are dense. We have networks of teachers that we can access easily, but in some cases, we are talking about working remotely potentially and not being connected to a lot of other peer teachers. Lack of awareness and lack of practical work, an economical crisis, absolutely, and we'll return to the bigger picture and how it affects teachers on a regular basis. Lack of internet, that's a very good point, because again, while we live in a highly technologized, I don't know what the word is, but high tech is around us, or so we think, but that's not the case with all our teachers and with all our schools. Administrative load, fantastic responses. Please keep on adding those, because it was really important to not only see the diversity of challenges that we experience as teacher educators, but also to see how across the world there are similar issues that we all encounter. The lack of funding, the lack of resources, time is limited, structural and systemic issues that are coming on top and add to teachers' workloads. So all of these answers are really, really critical. Thank you for sharing those. Do we have any questions, or do we want to pause here for a question before we move on to the next?
We haven't received any questions, Lavinia, so let's keep on
Sure.
keep going, so then we will have more input from you to ask questions. So I would also like to encourage our audience to type in the Q&A. We can see all of your questions and comments.
Absolutely. So a lot of the challenges that you have highlighted and we have mentioned are also challenges that teachers in Vietnam are experiencing. So in our project, we try to tackle some of these issues by developing and introducing 2 frameworks, and together with teachers and with teacher facilitators, but also with the critical support of DOETs, which are the local structures that looked after the development of teachers. So with the support of all this network, we were able to start developing new activities and align them with the curriculum to see if we can create more inclusive environments, to see if we can prepare our learners for a multilingual world, and also to work against the idea that students lack English. Because one of the things that we wanted to do with this project is to work against this, what is often referred to as the deficiency model, when you look at the students as not knowing English. So instead of starting with that point, what if we look at them and thinking about what do they actually know? What do they bring to the classroom? And that's what framework number 1, which is translanguaging, offers us. It's a view on language learning that draws on the idea that in order to learn and move into a new language, you need to draw on your resources and your language knowledge that you already have. So what it means to engage in translanguaging, it means using all the available resources that you have to think and communicate thoughts. It's about constructing knowledge and communicating it by drawing on everything that you know. And that means language, as in words, right? Language, not just English, but also your local languages, the languages of your ethnic groups, of your or your communities, but also other types of languages, visual language, gestural, body language. And some of this will be picked up a little bit later when Dobrochna will introduce the second framework. So translanguaging for us is a theory, which I understand is quite a difficult concept, although quite popular at the moment in many conversations around teacher development. For us, this concept of moving between resources and identifying the resources of our learners was one of the starting points for the project. Now, translanguaging is not an easy concept. So the way to introduce it was by turning to the support of art and arts-based practices, which is the second framework that Dobrochna will talk about, so we can move on to the next slide.
So what we propose in our project is the arts-based framework that supports translanguaging. As Lavinia has already mentioned, we are thinking about translanguaging, not just about the concept that has to do with languages in its strict sense, but we are thinking about knowledge creation. This is following Li Wei's definition of translanguaging, that it is creating knowledge and knowledges using all available means without thinking whether this is singing, gesturing, using words from one language or another. It is about the aim of communication. And when we worked with teachers in Vietnam, we realized that art can be used in different ways in activities in schools. We are writing about that framework, and you will be able to read about it in the paper which we are preparing at the moment. But it includes 4 ways of using art. Using art as content, art as tool, art as method, and art as thinking, so artistic thinking in a language classroom. If we move to the next slide, I will be able to show you a little bit more and tell you more about the way we are defining these 4 different ways of including art in a classroom. So very often art is used in a classroom as content. So you already mentioned going to the galleries, going to the museums, looking at pictures, videos, and this is using art as content. You look at art and you talk about it in the language you are teaching, in English. Art can also be used as a tool. And this is the other way we've seen very often in teaching practices. So you use art to help memorizing concepts. As you can see in the slide here, you ask children to paint an object because it helps to remember the word in English to be used when referring to that object. But there are two other ways of using art, which we also saw teachers engaging with. And if we move to the next slide, you will be able to see examples of using art as method and art as artistic thinking. So when you use art as method, and you can see here two examples of creating a portrait of a family and another activity where you create a creature and name it in multiple languages. Art as method involves making art step by step, as it helps learners use all their languages, words, images, gesture, movements, ritual practices to express meaning. This helps them communicate better and understand how language works. Then in artistic thinking, we are moving away from memorizing, drilling, copying, and repeating to processes of combining, selecting, and transforming meaning. So we are thinking here about thinking and doing language, culture, and art together, not before, but through, during, and whilst making. So this way of engaging with art in a language classroom draws on the personal experiences of learners and involve them in making art coming from their own personal experiences. We can move to the next slide now. And here we will invite Lien to talk about her practice.
Yeah, good afternoon, the teacher, and all the guests of our seminar today. I'm Huong, and I'm a teacher of English in lower secondary school in Nguyen City, and I'm very honored to talk about my experience when I joined the project of TEMA. When participating in the projects, I feel that all the teacher and student, all of us feel to be more creative when applying the art-based projects in teaching and learning. And the projects provide a dynamic platform for teachers to reimagine English classroom, and we not only introduce the grammar instruction or something like a theory. We use we can create the learning environment where the diversity and is embraced and creatively is celebrated. And the other one here, the project helps student to enhance student engagement and emotional connection to content, and they are more eager to the lesson and to the activity in our lesson. And the key lessons we have learned here, that is the value of collaborations, the adaptability, and the embracing the diversity, leading to more equitable classroom, and reinforcing the role of education as the drivers of social cohesion and positive change. You can see. Please. I'd like you to play the video for everyone to see. Yeah, yes. Please.
Are you ready? Yeah. Okay, let's start. Now, please sing along.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you've seen a lot a short video of a song created by a student. The topic of this lesson is about music and art. So the teacher give the student the requirement that you have to do the small project about composing a short video or a song using the traditional musical instruments, and the student divide the student into 4 groups, and each group will create a song. They use ChatGPT to create Vietnamese song, an English song, but based on traditional Vietnamese song, and at the end of the lesson, they perform the song very confidently in front of the class. They use the traditional, but although they don't know how to play the musical instruments, but they try their best to play it very confidently, and they are very eager to this activity. And I feel that they are more interested in the lesson, and especially through this activity, they remember more clearly the vocabulary they have learned from the lesson. Yeah, that is very interesting. And on the left of the pictures, you can see that is the other project. They make a map of Vietnam using the traditional hat of Vietnam, very creatively, and they after they work in group to form this one, they perform in English about their work of us. Now next one, I want to talk to show you the other one, the other activity of this of our school, of our student to use art as a content and art in as tool. Please move on the other one. Happy? Yeah. Here, you can see a lot of some of our school our students work up as they create greeting cards for New Year. And in the second one, the second picture, they use the waste or the used material to create photo of to some gift for their parents on Mother and Father's Day, and the next one is also about the some gift for souvenir for the teacher on Teacher's Day. Yeah, and in especially in the in class when on special occasion they draw on the board the pictures of the occasion and tell about that in English very confidently. And in the last picture, you can see that our student play the role in maybe a short play when they created the play their own and perform it on the stage. We have also a lot of activity, very interesting activity, but in the limited time we couldn't show it here. So in the maybe we will. I will hopefully we will be able to show it later for you to see, and English teachers as well as the teacher in Thái Nguyên City are very interested in these projects and very grateful to all.
I think we may have lost Lien for a second there. So what you have looked at are several outputs, several projects that the teachers have done in the classroom, and some of you may have created similar artifacts. But I think what's important to point here is that this is not about the artifact alone. This is not just about the pretty postcard or the pretty drawing. What we have tried to do in this project is to carefully design activities that are bringing in all the resources that students are aware of and can put into their work. So when we were looking earlier at the video, what's special about that video is the fact that the students came up with the lyrics. The students used the language of their choice. The students use words of their choice. The students brought in traditional instruments from home. And as Lien was saying, although they are not professional singers, it's all about creating a learning environment where learners can make choices and they learn English within a context that is familiar, within a context that makes sense for the learners. So these are some key important points that I wanted to highlight, that these projects are not just only about the artifacts and art as a pretty outcome, but it is about creating opportunities for learners to draw on their knowledge, to draw on their cultural knowledge, to draw on their practices from their communities. So in the Vietnamese context, for instance, we have designed activities around water puppetry, and how water puppetry, which is an art form that is highly recognized and appreciated in Vietnam, how can we bring that as a platform for encouraging language learning and the move into English? Going forward onto the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about the challenges that teachers and teacher educators have experienced. Because as we discussed at the beginning of this presentation, there are various challenges that we have encountered as well, and some of them will be familiar. And our project was fairly ambitious because it was trying to draw in practices and develop innovative strategies that were asking teachers to change how they were doing things, how they were engaging, for instance, with the textbook. So here are some of the things that we have encountered. The first one, and you mentioned it and you spotted it really well in your own practices, time. Finding the appropriate time to engage is difficult. And I want to acknowledge the time that all our teacher participants in the project made. Oftentimes at 8 p.m. on a Sunday evening, they would show up for these conversations with other fellow teachers to decide what to do next in their classroom, to decide how to develop their next activities. Any sort of change, any sort of process of change, as some of you may have encountered in your own experience, is a gradual process. And it is a process of making small changes. Any sort of big overhaul is very difficult to implement. So when we were introducing translanguaging principles, when we were talking about arts-based practices, we were doing it with the understanding that change will happen gradually. Teachers need time to understand new practices, to understand why we are doing these new activities and how are they different from what we have done in the past. Also, how do these new activities fit in with their own curriculum, with their other pressure points? Also, what was interesting in the Vietnamese context is that we as researchers from Scotland, we had to learn the unwritten expectations, the unwritten codes of what it means to be a teacher. Being a teacher doesn't look the same in various parts of the world. There are different expectations, habits, and some of the rules are written, some of them are not written. So whenever we have engaged with teachers in Vietnam, we were impressed by the fact that they were trying to do their best, to do the work as it should be. And there was a performative element that was new to us. So we learned from them as well. So this idea of the peer model and peer learning was relevant in how we engaged and learned from each other. The relationships between the languages need support. We talked about translanguaging, and translanguaging is about using not just English, but also making space in the class for Vietnamese and other local languages. Your students may not know English very well, but they know other languages. So if we say this is a space for English only, you can open yourself to a silent class, and we don't want that. We want to make sure that we acknowledge the learners with everything that they know and can do in the class. So this idea of adopting a holistic approach was really important. But we also realized that in working with teachers, we need to look after people's well-being as well. People were talking about being overburdened. People were talking about not having time to prepare. People were looking after families while they were attending our sessions. So when we talk about teacher education, we need to look at the whole person. We need to look at the whole person that sits and goes in front of a class, because that person has their own demands and challenges at home as well. We noted technical issues. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. But what I want you to keep in mind is that whenever we are exploring new ways, new places, new materials for doing activities, that is a complex process and it's a messy process, and we need to develop the patience and support to encourage people to make that step towards change. I'll pass it over to Dobrochna to give you a little bit of more insight into our materials and enablers, and we're quickly approaching the end of our webinar, so we're looking forward to your questions. Dobrochna, over to you and to the next slide.
So
that was the previous one.
There should be a slide with activities.
That's okay.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is the one. So what we're sharing with you are examples of the activities we created as part of this project. And I saw in the Q&A questions about activities, about examples, about how we aligned the activities with the curriculum. And this is exactly what you will see in this set of resources, to which we will share a link. You will be able to see the QR code again and access the activities and the website where we are sharing them. But what was important for the teachers was exactly that the activities will not only use local resources, but also are aligned with the curriculum. So you can see that each of the cards includes the notion of the topic, and the topic is taken from the textbooks teachers in Vietnam are using. So you can start your unit of learning which you have in your textbook with the activity we proposed for that particular unit. You can also see the examples here of using local resources. For example, using tea leaves, using rice, using shells that are available. We have I was really impressed listening to the teacher who told me about the art activities they created using leaves of different plants in the local area. We also engaged, and you will see in the second slide, with local museums. So we work with 3 museums in Vietnam who helped us to develop activities based on the resources from that museum, from these museums. And you can see the activity in which we are involving with local topics and local artifacts. So if we move to the next slide, you will be able to see the QR codes to the website where the activities are being slowly uploaded. So please have a look and check again and again, because there will be more and more activities shared there. We also have a Facebook group where not only we as researchers, but also teachers are sharing the activities they do in the schools.
Thank you so much, Dobrochna. So the activities that we have developed from the consolidation project are almost ready to go. So if you keep an eye on the Creative Language Practices website, that's the place where we will upload them. And what you have seen in the 2 activities, I'm a little fisherman, and the other one on tea leaves and seashells and rice, that's the one that will be coming up. So we will have lots of activities that have been inspired from local practices in Vietnam, have been supported and developed with the collaboration with the museums, but also through peer learning and peer conversations with teachers. So we have tried to put all these resources together. You can adapt them also to your own context, and I would say that this is a critical element whenever you're looking at a resource. We hope that instead of rice, you will put in the grains of your local communities, that instead of tea leaves, you're going to put in the leaves from your own trees, because this is the whole message of the project. Language learning needs to be localized. And while we talk about a global world and learning English for a global world, we will never leave behind the accents, the knowledge, the culture, the traditions, the things that are very close to our learners' hearts, and that's the world that they are part of. So it's we offer all of these activities with the big encouragement for everyone to adapt them to the level of their learners and also to the materials of the communities that you are part of. I think I would like to stop here so we can have the opportunity to pick up some questions and discuss a little bit. Yeah, so I'll pass it over to you, Siren.
Thank you so much for this enjoyable session. It's been really valuable to hear how you are using art and translanguaging to create a more inclusive and creative classroom. So we have some questions. So is it, can you please clarify this? How important is it for you to allow students to draft in their native language before expressing some ideas in English? Is it the case in most of the activities, or how you are dealing with these?
Thank you so much for that question, Siren. Yes, the one of the foundational, principles that we have applied in our activities is to find ways of encouraging the use of multiple languages and multiple modes of communication, because that's how we communicate. That's how we draw on. And our learners, when they come into our classrooms, they are drawing from all that knowledge as well, from the knowledge of Vietnamese or Chinese or Polish, or depending on where you are in the world, they are drawing from those funds of knowledge, if you will. What's interesting in the Vietnamese context, and Lien would be able to confirm that, is that in practice in the classroom, a lot of the learners are, and the teachers as well, are drawing on Vietnamese. So oftentimes they would move very quickly between Vietnamese and English to make sure that everyone is on the same page, because if you just put on a blanket English only context, some of the learners may get lost, some of the learners may get discouraged and not be motivated to learn and even make mistakes. Now, is this a difficult process? Yes, it is. And I think that a lot of the concerns that teachers have are around, if we allow other languages, then will we lose on the English front? And I think that this is not about losing or winning. It's about fostering the excitement of working with languages, no matter what those languages are. I don't know if my colleagues would like to add. Dobrochna, do you want to add something, or Lien?
I can say only that it is about the purpose of using languages. It is not and learning a language in an abstract way. It's about seeing the purpose. It's creating the purpose for the students to use the language we teach, while supporting it by using other languages the students know.
That's very clear. Thank you so much. Well, that makes it very clear. So it's like you are using arts as a tool for communication. Language is also a tool for communication, but when needed, they can use their own local language as well, because that's actually the main purpose, right? So
and it's also the idea that language creates opportunities. So just to go back to the example of the exquisite corpse, where we ask learners to draw their imaginative creatures and start with body parts, right? Oftentimes, traditionally, that lesson can be taught with a pre-given list of words, right? Body parts, eyes, head, chin, so you can name and have a list. The way we approach it is imagine a creature and draw it. So start with the drawing. And because we start with the drawing and not with the language that we know or don't know, then that already gives the learners the authority to represent things that otherwise they wouldn't have said, or things that they wouldn't have brought up. So if they start from that point of imagination, or even if we say just create a drawing and not feel bounded or restricted by the languages that you know or don't know, then that gives them a space where they can say, I actually want to know how to talk about talons rather than nails, right? So, and you might not have put in, scales in your list of body parts, because you may have imagined, a human body, and human bodies don't have scales. But if the learner draws a snake, then we can talk about scales. And that's a new word that they learn because they drew it. So it's about creating opportunities for language learning rather than be bounded by now we learn about body parts in English.
That makes perfect sense. So this is creating this information gap also, and they will be more curious to learn what they actually, they will realize what they want to know more about, so over what they didn't know. Thank you so much. I really like this approach personally. And so there are some questions also about different cultures. So what challenges are there due to different backgrounds and cultures in a multilingual context?
Dobrochna, you want to pick that one up?
I think you are much better talking about challenges. I'm too optimistic, and I tend to forget about challenges and focus on the achievements and how great it is to work with translanguaging and art. So maybe I start from the other side, talking about the fact that when we introduce translanguaging and art into the classroom, we are creating this space where learners and teachers can introduce their own cultures, their own languages, and share them and build on that diversity. So we are opening the classroom to the diversity that comes from both learners and teachers, and creating a space where this becomes a base for future learning.
So it provides more opportunities then to the teachers and learners.
Exactly.
And and I think that the other important point is to reflect on who owns the cultural knowledge. And oftentimes, if again, it goes back to how we see ourselves as teachers and teacher educators. If we see ourselves as being in control, then we will be tempted to go with the idea that I need to know about the cultural backgrounds of my students. I need to know their languages. I need to know so much that I probably don't know. But if we change the relationship and if we say, okay, in the classroom, we all have something to learn from each other, then I don't have to be in control of the cultural backgrounds of my learners because that's what they are bringing into the classroom. So my role as a teacher then becomes that of a facilitator that opens up the learning space towards sharing those cultural knowledges. And, the example that Lien showed in the video with the students, the students were bringing their own instruments. The students were making those choices. And that's where the teacher role, that's a slightly different approach to the teacher's role that we wanted to explore with this project. What if the teacher also became the learner? And it's not always comfortable to give some of that control. Lien, I don't know if you want to speak to that and how your experience has been when you transferred some of that knowledge to the learners. Do you want to share anything else? You're muted. Okay, great.
Yeah, first of all, I have to say thank you to you and the teacher here for giving me the opportunity to get to know about this project and to join this project. And when I applied this project in teaching, my student, not all of them are good at English. So they before that they are not very excited about learning English. Some of them say that I can't speak English well. I don't know this word. I don't know this topic, and I don't know how to speak in English about that. But when I say that, you can use their ability about drawing or playing music, or you can use their own language, your own language, to show about that, to show about the topic. So they are very confidently to draw the picture about the topic, to write in Vietnamese about what they know about the topics, and some other student, they know about the ChatGPT, AI. They show all their ability to engage engage in the lesson.
Yeah.
That interesting. So they are even good at AI, better at AI than me. So I become a learner, not a teacher.
Yeah, and I think that that's a very good example, because for us, language learning is how we move learners into a language rather than do they know it or not. And again, this sometimes is restricted by our systems, because we have systems of assessment that put a hard mark between you know or you don't know. But if we want to build excitement, motivation, engagement, then we need to build this environment where it's okay to make mistakes, where it's okay to use your other language in order to say what you want. And then gradually we move into and learn more of the target language.
Exactly. So once they have this positive attitude, they will be more motivated, maybe, yeah, to learn more. And in terms of the teacher's role, maybe, you know, in those arts museums, there are curators. So is teacher becoming a curator in the classroom? So it's not, I mean, the success then won't depend on how much we know, but how we facilitate and cooperate with those diverse teams, and with the materials, with those different materials we have. You started with identifying those materials, that's the resources, right? And yes, students, teachers are themselves the biggest resource. But yeah, I really like your report.
That's a brilliant label, teacher as a curator. I love it, and I think, you know, it's a big ask to invite teachers to change and become curators of the learning spaces. And that's why for us it was about resources, and that's why we're grateful to, you know, to the British Council for the funding, because people were talking earlier that funding and resources are some of the two main aspects that are difficult to come by. That's why we share our learning and our activities, because we have developed these activities with 600 plus people in the project, because we are engaging with 640 teachers, 3 museums. We've had support, financial support to do this work. So we want to help other teachers to become curators without feeling the burden of becoming curators. So we hope that our activities serve as seeds and will make the work of teachers who want to try these activities out easier.
We can find these we will share all of these with links, not just the QR code. You mentioned also, I mean, you briefly mentioned here challenges such as time constraints, and in addition to resources. And how did you support teachers in navigating these pressures? From your experience, are there any key suggestions for planning some such activities? One question from the Q&A. For example, any recommended frequency, activity length, or home preparation? So did you have any mechanisms to facilitate?
Dobrochna, do you want to pick up on that?
I just wanted to say that in this area, we very much learn from the teachers, because they are specialists in their own context. So they know their children, they know their learners, they know how much they can ask them to prepare before the class. They know how much they can ask them to do in the space of a lesson. So here it is really difficult to say generally what's good or what's bad, because every context is different, and we can see big differences in the way we work with teachers in Scotland, for example, where the system is completely different, and teachers in Vietnam, where the system has completely different affordances and limitations. Lavinia, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, so I would say that some of our activities that we are proposing can be done in a short period of time. Others require multiple sessions, so they could be developed as a project, a semester or a term length project, so across multiple sessions with different stages. What we have tried to do with the project is to look at the mindset, to think about our relationships with the languages we teach, our relationships with the learners, and to see how much of a change we can make by implementing these new activities. As I have said at some point, change is very difficult, and it's difficult not because teachers don't want change. Actually, to the contrary, in our project, one of in the initial survey that we shared around, one of the most common comment was we want to know and learn innovative practices, new ways of doing things in the classroom. So the teachers are open to change, but that change can be very difficult depending on where you are and depending on the system you're operating in. If you are within a context that emphasizes assessment according to very strict criteria and benchmarks, then finding space for creativity, finding space for some of these activities will be challenging. And you have to be an agile teacher to find where and how to implement some of these activities. But for us, it's not just the activity itself. It's also the way you approach the entire process of learning and teaching a language, because that's where translanguaging is comes in place. You can go and teach the same unit of learning in a very prescriptive way, rule-based or grammar-based, or you can go in and achieve the same outcome with your learners, knowing that unit of learning, but arriving at it through a creative approach or through an innovative approach. Sometimes what makes the difference is even the acknowledgement of what we are teaching. Oftentimes, teachers will say that they teach English. When we teach and engage with our learners here, we talk about Englishes. That in and of itself is a big difference. It's a difference in approach. It's a difference in understanding what and how we teach. So there are small or big changes that you can make with some of these activities. And that's what we have seen in our teachers as well. The same activity would look very differently depending on where you are, in what school, what kind of restrictions, limitations you have from the curriculum, from the ministry, from the administration that you're in. So I think from our perspective, what's important is that the teachers start thinking about how we can change how we approach languages, how we do things in the classroom. And the level of change will very much depend on how much space do you have for growth. But what we have learned from our teachers is that many teachers recognize that things need to change. The world has changed. The exigencies on our learners have changed. The classrooms that we're operating in have changed. In Scotland, we have at the moment, how many? 154 languages spoken actively in Scotland. And you might think of Scotland as a place of one homogeneous language, right? The reality is so diverse. So moving towards multilingual approaches to language learning is something that we think will be unavoidable in the next couple of years.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. So you are opening our minds. And I would also like to check, do you support this translanguaging across all academic levels, from primary to tertiary? So what's your thoughts about which levels should that be, or can it be implemented at all levels?
Dobrochna, you want to pick that up?
Of course. Personally, yes, I believe that this is important. Translanguaging should be supported at all levels. It's not easy. It's a new frame of mind. It is a paradigmatic shift from teaching monolingually to teaching multilingually. But we are getting there. We are moving in that directions. In some places faster, in some places in a slower motion. But as Lavinia said, it is an unavoidable process, and it is needed at all levels. Some teachers, some teachers see it as easier to implement with younger learners, but I would say that it depends on the approach. It is a complex approach, and you can use translanguaging differently in different contexts and at different levels. But translanguaging is here to stay. Lavinia, I'm sure you have something to add.
Yeah, no, I echo everything that you've mentioned. In practice, we have applied it at all the levels that you mentioned, Siren, but it looks differently. You know, the kinds of activities that you can do from a translanguaging perspective at a tertiary level would probably look very differently from the other levels, because again, it's about what opportunities you can create for language learning across languages, and how you can use the languages that you know or that your learners know in order to support your further development. It also depends on the purpose, because again, if you're teaching in the context of, let's say, business English, and the focus is heavily on your ability to perform within that particular domain, at a high level with your English, you can go, you know, towards consolidating your knowledge of English. But in every context, I always go back to, but what are the connections to your own to your own languages? What are the connections to your English is never pure. We talk about idealized English or Englishes that our learners aspire to. But oftentimes the practice is that, you know, you'll always speak a variety of English that will reflect who you are. And that piece of who you are for us is very important, because for us matters a lot what we lose or gain when we say we are going to speak only English in this class. Lien was talking earlier about inclusive spaces, and that's what we want to achieve, are places where learners come in and don't need to say, "Excuse my English."
That's great. Yeah, that I really like this inclusive approach you have, and your inclusive approach and all the resourcefulness that you have brought. And in terms of teacher education aspect, what are your final suggestions, recommendations to teacher educators who work with teachers who would like to find out more and support, maybe create this culture within their schools? So what would be the starting point for them?
I would say that it is thinking about the learners' identity, but it is also thinking about knowledges they bring, because languages are proxy for knowledge. So it is about identity formation as much as it is about knowledge formation. And I think this is something to think about when you start working with learners.
And in terms of programs, we learned so much through the TAGS model. Not just the research team, but everybody involved. So learning was always multi-directional. So the teacher activity groups is a model that would be worth looking into, but it requires support. And I think, you know, I haven't mentioned British Council just because they are the funders, but because they have provided the structure, the framework for us to understand how the teacher activity groups work. And then we also benefited from local support. And I think that there were a couple of comments in the Q&A that were talking about the importance of structure and administration and what are your organizations that will support this kind of peer learning. So those of you who are involved with such organizations, I think, you know, we all play an important role to make sure that teachers know that their peer learning is valued not just at the local level, but also at the school level, at the district level, at the provincial level. So in our case, we had the support of departments of education and training, which were the provincial level entities that have encouraged teachers to participate in this project and invest their time in this project. And it does matter. Because when you are working at scale and when you want to support each other, you can have informal conversations and learn from each other. But when you have that high level of support, then that is very encouraging and it's very rewarding as well, because your work is recognized, your peer learning is seen. And I think that that's one of the things that matters for teachers. Oftentimes we are doing amazing work, but in our own classrooms. And it's important that the work of each and every teacher is recognized at the higher levels as well.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. You have really given us some valuable strategies, ideas, a great approach to see learning and teaching of English. For those of you, and Lien, thank you so much for also sharing from your classroom. And the recording will be available in the next couple of days. So you will also receive from us the links from this project. And please remember to sign up for our newsletter and for the next webinar in June on teacher observation for learning the British Council's updated CPD framework for teachers. So thank you once again to our presenters. So we look forward to following your projects and your paper. So hope to see you again in another session in the future.
Thank you very much to everyone. This was a great opportunity. Thank you all for your input and for everything that you posted in the Q&A. We'll definitely have a look and read your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for Lavinia and the teacher giving me the opportunity to join the webinar.